Good afternoon, everyone. May we start this afternoon's program? The speakers are on, and I think we should start now. We will start this afternoon's proceedings with the Chai Anthem.
Jesus, Lord, lover of life, giver of wholeness and giver of mirth, on towards life, be all our strife, into its fullness, Lord, bring us to birth. Weak and infirm is our human clay, and all our frame lies here tired and broke. If only, Lord, as you pass by the way, we could reach out and touch the hem of your cloak. Give us compassion, Lord, give us your mind. Give us your vision and give us your ears. Give us your hands to touch all humankind, and from all faces to wipe away tears. Mender of all that ails body or soul, and of all human pain known or concealed, you alone can save us, making us whole. Say but a word, Lord, and we shall be healed. Healer divine, make us healers with you, menders of all that is crooked and curled, healing each other and loving anew. Be in our eyes, lips, hands, healing the world. Give us compassion, Lord, give us your mind. Give us your vision and give us your ears. Give us your hands to touch all humankind, and from all faces to wipe away tears. Give us compassion, Lord, give us your mind. Give us your vision and give us your ears. Give us your hands to touch all humankind, and from all faces to wipe away tears.
I now call upon Reverend Dr. Father Matthew Abraham, who is no stranger to most of those present here today. He is the President Director General of the Catholic Health Association of India, which we say CHAI. He has spent over 10 years of leadership in Catholic healthcare. He served as the Health Secretary of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of India. He was the chairperson of the Technical Resource Group of NACO. He is currently the president of the Christian Coalition for Health India and is also the chairperson of Link Asia Network. Now over to Reverend Father Dr. Matthew Abraham for the formal welcome.
Thank you, Anivinda. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Glad to see all of you once again for this webinar. Well, we are in the midst of the next wave of COVID. Unlike last year, people probably would have lost the fear about this disease, and the cases seems to be increasing day by day. We have crossed what has happened in last year, if you look at the numbers. In this context, it is very important for us to once again come together and figure out how to proceed. And maybe one of the best strategies of dealing with this problem is the strategy of using the vaccines. That's why we thought we will start with this series of webinar with COVID vaccines. But we have very good speakers, eminent speakers from reputed organizations today, from outside the network, as well as we have some of our sisters also going to share with us their experience of being part of this vaccine campaign and their own experience of vaccination. Well, before I conclude, Anuvinda will be introducing all the speakers. So before I conclude, I just want to introduce Anuvinda to you. She is familiar with all of you. She's a lawyer. She's based in Delhi. She is also currently the Executive Director of the Christian Coalition for Health. And many of you might have seen her in many of our meetings. And thank you, Anuvinda, for agreeing to facilitate this meeting, moderate this meeting. I once again formally welcome all of you for this webinar, and I wish you all the best and great learning through this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Matthew. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome once again to this afternoon's webinar for the members of the Catholic Health Association of India. April 7th every year is observed as World Health Day. This year, the theme for World Health Day is Building a Fairer, Healthier World for Everyone. The topic for discussion for this afternoon's webinar, Preparedness for Rollout and Management of COVID-19 Vaccine, fits in very well with the theme for the day. We know that the administration of the COVID-19 vaccine can be successful and reach more people with the combined effort of government and private sector, especially the private not-for-profit sector. Many of the CHAI member institutions present here for this webinar are situated in remote and difficult to reach areas, with more and more of our hospitals being asked to join the effort to vaccinate the population of this country. Today's theme for the World Health Day, Building a Fairer and Healthier World for Everyone, is more likely to be achieved. India began the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine on the 16th of January 2019. As you are aware, in the beginning of the rollout, the vaccine was limited to the healthcare workers and frontline staff. Thereafter, it is being rolled out in a phased manner. The joint effort of public, private, and private sector for the rollout of the vaccine is paramount to be able to reach out to everyone and deliver the vaccine effectively. Several of CHAI members are already vaccination centers. We will hear from 4 of these member institutions today on their experience of the rollout of the vaccine. India on Sunday breached the 1 lakh daily caseload mark for the first time since the pandemic began, as per reports that we are receiving. Everyone above the age of 45 is now eligible for the vaccine. Some states are also targeting specific groups like bank workers and lawyers. Nearly 80 million doses have been given so far, mostly to frontline workers and people above the age of 60. As I said earlier, unless there is a combined effort of the government and private hospitals to deliver COVID vaccine, the country will take a lot longer to vaccinate the whole population. CHAI therefore felt that it would be appropriate to hold this webinar, as most of the member institutions will be participating in the vaccine drive in the near future. To this end, the objectives of the webinar are threefold: provide the health professionals from the network of CHAI information on preparedness for rollout of the management of the vaccine, understand the role of health workers of the CHAI network in the role of the vaccine, and to address the apprehensions of the health professionals on the entire process of vaccination and issues regarding vaccine safety. I'm sure with the eminent speakers that we have here with us today, we will learn a lot on how to be prepared to roll out the COVID vaccine in our hospitals and health centers. Today, we have 2 eminent speakers from prestigious institutions who will cover the objectives that we are seeking to address in this webinar. They will speak for 15 minutes each. Thereafter, we will have 4 of our sister doctors whose institutions are administering the vaccine to share their experience so far. They will speak for 5 minutes each, and at the end, we will open the session for about 20 minutes for question and answers. So the first speaker for this afternoon is Dr. Prasad Matthews. Dr. Matthews is the medical superintendent of the prestigious Christian Medical College, Vellore. He is a professor in the Department of Geriatric Medicine at the same institution. After completing his MBBS and MD from CMC Vellore, he went on to do his FRCP in geriatrics from the Royal College of Physicians, Australia. He is a member of the Committee of Approval of New Drugs in India under the Director General of Health Services, New Delhi. He has presented several papers in both national and international forums, and has also published articles in prestigious journals. I now call upon Dr. Prasad Matthews to address the members of CHAI.
Reverend Father Dr. Matthew Abraham, Anivinda, office bearers of CHAI, and members who no doubt are working in remote hospitals all over the country. I'm really glad to be here this afternoon to speak to you about some aspects of vaccination rollout and safety. I won't spend too much time on introduction. We are all inundated with statistics almost every day in the TV and the news. So I'll plunge straight into my topic. Okay, so CMCH, our first case was somewhere last year in May or June, and since then we have had about 11,000 admissions in our hospital. We have tested about 70,000 samples, of which around 13,500 have been positive at approximately a 19% positivity rate. Now the second surge, as you are aware, we crossed 1 lakh cases a day over the last 3 days. The increase has been at a much faster rate than the first surge. So we are increasing really fast. So a peak in CMC last year in 2020 was when we had 150 cases on a single day, and we had 48% positivity rate. That time we had 950 beds in the hospital for COVID and 90 ICU beds. 3 weeks ago, our positivity rate was 3.5%. Beginning of last week, it was 6%. Yesterday, it was 18%. It's going up that fast. It's going up around 2% a day. So that makes it very difficult to tackle this surge. So what are the reasons for the second surge? Clearly, variants and inappropriate behavior, mass gatherings, non-usage of masks, etc. But all this has been going on for the last 3 months. So why has the surge happened over the last 6 weeks or so? I presume it's due to variants which are much more infectious than the original virus that we had with us last year. I'll just tell you a little bit about variants. So there are 3 major variants of coronavirus: the UK variant, the South African variant, and the Brazil variant. So the UK variant was discovered in UK in September 2020. It has this N501Y mutation in the spike protein, which increases the transmissibility. So it spreads much more easily and quickly, and it first showed up in UK with that massive spread leading to a huge lockdown. Now this data is actually more than a month old, so it's actually spread all over the world. It may be about 1/3 more deadly than other variants. And the good news is current vaccines work well against this new variant. So the second variant is the Brazil variant, which was discovered in January 2021. This variant also spreads more easily and quickly. It's been detected in multiple countries. This data is 1 month old. It's better at evading our immune system and possibly has reduced vaccine efficacy. These studies are still going on. The South African variant was first identified in October 2020. Again, spreads easily, has spread all over the world. Again, better at evading our immune system. And again, possible reduction of vaccine effectiveness. Many of the vaccines have been less effective against the South African variant. So what is the status of the variants in India? The number of genomes that have been sequenced is fairly low. The news that came out a couple of weeks ago from the government was that it sequenced about 11,000 samples from 18 Indian states, and they found 771 variants, known variants, 736 of the UK variant, 34 of the South African variant, and 1 of the Brazilian variant. And a double mutant has also been found in India, in Maharashtra. We don't know too much about it, about how it differs from the usual virus. So research has to be still done on that, and it has already reached the USA. Now I'll tell you something about the two vaccines that are now available in India through the government program. So the first one was developed by Oxford University, the ChAdOx vaccine, produced by the Serum Institute of India in India and called Covishield in India, and produced by the multinational drug company AstraZeneca and sold overseas by them. So basically the vector is a chimpanzee adenovirus which has been modified so it's unable to cause disease, which contains the genes for the spike protein of SARS-CoV-2, enters the human cells which then express the spike protein, and the body produces antibodies against the spike protein. So that's how the vaccine works. Now this has been studied quite extensively, and there is a paper from the Lancet in December 2020 looking at an interim analysis of 4 randomized controlled trials in Brazil, South Africa and the United Kingdom. So in this study, actually some of the recipients got a low dose, half dose first and a standard dose second. That's a full dose second. And interestingly enough, that group had a higher success rate of 70%. While when you pulled all of them together, the success was 62%. So this is the figure that's been quoted of 62% efficacy. And this is the data in a graphic form. So the orange line or brown line is the vaccinated group, and the brown line is the vaccinated group and the blue line is the placebo group. So you can see the number of infections was much less in the vaccinated group. After that, a US trial report came out about 2-3 weeks back. There's always been controversy with AstraZeneca. They first gave the data from February with the 79% efficacy. Then the FDA cracked down on them and told them to give the March data as well. And that came up as 76%. So this was with 2 doses 4 weeks apart. As you all know, the recommendation for spacing has been increased. So India, the government is recommending 4 to 8 weeks and WHO is recommending 8 to 12 weeks. So why did this happen? So you know, in the first trial, the efficacy was 60% in the group that got vaccination after 4 weeks. There are larger trials that have come out which are still in a preprint stage, which show some data which looks a bit strange. So the one cohort after, who were vaccinated after 4 weeks, the efficacy was 70%. With just a single dose, the efficacy was 70%, which was sustained up to 3 months. With the dose after 4 weeks, strangely enough, the efficacy was 54%, which doesn't sound logical at all. And when it was given at 8 to 12 weeks, it was over 80%. But this kind of data has been replicated in other studies, which is why the schedule for the second dose has been pushed out by both the Indian government and the WHO. So, Covishield has unfortunately, AstraZeneca vaccine has unfortunately been in the news all over the world, in the US, Europe, for all sorts of reasons. US, I told you, because the FDA forced them to give some more data. And in between, some countries in the European Union had banned it for a period of time. And the main reason is because these clotting issues. So the data shows that out of 20 million vaccine recipients in the UK and European Economic Community, 7 patients had blood clots in multiple vessels, and there were 18 cases of cerebral venous sinus thrombosis, most within 14 days of vaccine receipt, and most in women less than 55 years of age. The European Medical Agency has looked at all the data very carefully, and they say this number in 20 million vaccine recipients is no more than random, and they have come out with a verdict that there is no association, and they have approved it. But some countries are still being cautious. For example, Germany is allowing it only in those greater than 55 years. Caucasians generally have a higher tendency to thrombosis than Indians, and we haven't seen such problems in India. So what are the other side effects of Covishield? Fatigue, headache and fever, which can be severe up to 8% of cases. What we tell patients is, the good news is that your body is producing antibodies. There's been one case of transverse myelitis in the phase 3 trial, and 1% have injection site pain and redness. Anaphylaxis is very rare. We had one case out of around 12,000 vaccinated, who was in hospital for a few hours. But we have to be ready for that, and that's why the vaccine preparations are quite elaborate. What about Covaxin? Covaxin is produced by an Indian company, Bharat Biotech. It's a whole inactivated virus vaccine. So some people feel that the immunogenicity against variants will be better because it's the whole virus and has all the spike proteins. So it needs adjuvants to produce better immunogenicity. As I said, it's developed by ICMR and Bharat Biotech. So phase 1, phase 2 and phase 3 trials have been completed. There was some controversy regarding this also, because initially the government had released it in clinical trial mode. The reason they had released it in clinical trial mode was that the phase 3 data had not yet come out when it was released by the government. Anyway, the phase 1 data for Covaxin showed that the immune responses produced in the volunteers who had the vaccine were similar to that seen in convalescent plasma from patients who had COVID infection. That is to say, they had similar levels of neutralizing antibody, which was able to neutralize coronavirus in vitro in the lab. And the phase 2 trial was published in the Lancet a few months ago, and that showed that Covaxin was safe. There was no excess of side effects in the treatment group as compared to the placebo group. The phase
Dr.
3
Prasad, sorry, just to say you have 5 minutes more, so just...
Okay, so I'll ripple on. The interim analysis was released on 4th of March and showed an efficacy of 80%, not yet been published in a scientific journal. Covaxin's side effects are pretty similar in terms of local pain and swelling and fever and body ache. Okay, you know about the eligibility for vaccine. I won't go over the indications and contraindications. Important: anaphylaxis, allergy to previous dose of COVID vaccine, or vaccines, injectable drugs or food, pregnancy and lactation. You have to inform the team and take special precautions if you are on blood thinners. So 83 million people vaccinated so far. You know that multiple government and private hospitals have been registered as vaccination centers. Registration is through the CoWIN portal, but walk-in registration is also allowed. So manpower requirements in a vaccination center: you need a site manager, medical officer, vaccinator, data entry operators. So you need quite a lot of space because people have to wait before vaccination and for half an hour after vaccination to watch for anaphylaxis. You need a refrigerator, computers and accessories for CoWIN portal, of course internet connection, injection trolley and emergency drug tray with adrenaline, IV fluids, hydrocortisone, a crash cart, wheelchair, trolley, ambulance to transfer in case of emergency. And I said you need place for people to sit before and after vaccination. So in our case, we received our vaccine from a government urban public health center nearby. Vaccines were received in a storage box taken from our hospital by our staff. Vaccines were received at the pharmacy store, a walk-in fridge, and accounted for with quantity details, batch number and expiry date on the ledger maintained in the walk-in fridge. So the required quantity for each day is handed over to a nursing supervisor, and at the end of the session, remaining vials are taken back. In case vials were insufficient, the PHC was contacted for more vaccine. So we had a reception, and we have given up to 900 doses in a day. Reception and info desk, beneficiaries, pre-waiting area, doctor's desk, payment desk, vaccinators desk, verifiers desk, post-vaccine waiting area. We had a fairly senior doctor from emergency room or medicine and a junior doctor available every day. So this is just the process of filling the forms. Then the beneficiary fills a form screened by a pharmacist, consultation with the medical officer in case of contraindication, screening and clearance, data entry first, then vaccination, observed for 30 minutes and then allowed to go. This is the form we were using. On the right side in pink is the FAQs which have been put up on our website, which any of our staff can read. This is the total statistics of vaccination so far. Healthcare workers about 18,500 and public around 2,300, including about 400 between 45 and 59. This was the first day of vaccination at our center, January 20th. The director, the nursing superintendent, and myself got vaccinated on day 1 with Covishield. This is a view of the waiting area, the vaccination area, post-vaccination area, the computer terminals, etc. Thank you. I'll be happy to take any questions later.
Thank you, Dr. Prasad. That was very informative, and I'm sure everybody would have got a lot of information from you. Our next speaker is Dr. Madan Gopal. Dr. K. Madan Gopal is a health professional qualified with MBBS MD from Gandhi Medical College, Bhopal, and has been working on issues related to health system reforms and strengthening in India for more than 28 years. He is currently working with the National Institute for Transforming India, also known as the Niti Aayog, the apex policy think tank for the Government of India, as Senior Consultant of Health. He has previously worked in different capacities at organizations and institutes like the Department of Health and Family Welfare in the state of Chhattisgarh, the Chhattisgarh State Health Resource Center, National AIDS Control Organization, Public Health Foundation of India, Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana, Ministry of Labor and Employment, Public Health Resource Network. He has also served, and many more organizations. He has also served as a faculty member at various educational institutions like the Indian Institute of Health Management Research, Jaipur, Medical College, Raipur, GMC Jagdalpur, and MGIMS Sevagram. He's also served as a senior scientist as RMRCT, Indian Council for Medical Research. He's worked with various government and non-government organizations and institutions in various capacities and on versatile projects. He is the recipient of the Individual Award of Excellence in Implementation of RSBI, awarded to him by the Ministry of Labour and Employment, and is recognized by the Federation of Obstetricians and Gynecologists for his contributions towards women's health. Over to you, Dr. Madan Gopal, for the next speaker. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Anuvinda.
Thank you for accepting our invitation.
Okay, thank you very much. Distinguished Reverend Father and Anuvinda and dear participants. I will be just quickly starting with the presentation. Let me share the screen. I think it is visible.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. So I will be just talking about the COVID vaccination program in India. I would be just talking about the COVID vaccination program in India, how we have conceptualized. Once the cases were rising way back during the last year, in the month of April, May, after the lockdown, a thought came that we should also venture for vaccination. We should start preparing and see that whether we have the vaccination capacity or not. With that thought, a group was formed and we deliberated on taking the stock, whether the vaccination, how vaccination can be developed in India, and if any vaccine is available in the foreign country, how by tech transfer and how the manufacturing capacity can be enhanced. With that thought, that the group was formed and the results are visible now. I will be just taking you where we stand. India is the world major vaccine development and manufacturing hub. We are having 19 companies with 24 manufacturing establishments. We are providing more than 60% of the vaccine to the developing world through WHO. It accounts for 1/4 of the global manufacturing capacity. The Indian manufacturers, they are strong in manufacturing more than 30 vaccines. It's not that we are manufacturing. Another important thing is that we have developed the rotavirus, Japanese encephalitis virus, typhoid and malaria vaccine. So these are the development also has happened. So that means apart from manufacturing, we are now developing vaccine and marketing it as well. So this is the journey, vaccine journey. So how the vaccine is manufactured. First, it comes to the manufacturer. Then the batch is testing at the Central Drug Laboratory, Kasoli. After the approval of the batch, the vaccine is supplied from the manufacturer to the state vaccine store or the general medical stores department. From there, the vaccine through the transport to the other areas, the districts, and it is then after the cold chain vaccination, after the district level vaccination site, it is transported to the cold point, and from there it is transferred to the vaccination, which my previous speaker, Dr. has already mentioned that from where they are receiving. From that point, it comes to the manufacturing. And now we will talk about the rationalization or rational allocation. The rational allocation happens if this circle is there, because unless if any of the chain of this circle breaks, then you will be having a supply issues in the vaccine delivery. So these are the cold chain network which we are having. We are having around 29,719. That means the cold chain structure, they have more or less been available for accommodating the current production and the current distribution system. So we are having two current vaccines which are currently being used. One is Bharat Biotech, which was indigenously developed, which is known as Covaxin. It is the platform and other things have been already mentioned by my previous speaker. So it is an inactivated virus, and ICMR is partnering that. This is indigenously developed vaccine and is more or less now provided full authorization, that means the emergency use authorization after clearing the phase 3 trials. The other vaccine is the Serum Institute vaccine. The origin is from UK and USA, AstraZeneca, which we are calling. It is based on a non-replicating viral vector platform. The other names are Oxford, AstraZeneca, and in India it is known as Covishield vaccine. And if you look at the manufacturing and the development, the capacity of the Serum Institute is very, very high. It is providing around 60% of the WHO requirement of this. That's why you will be seeing more of Covishield vaccines in the country than Covaxin, because the manufacturing is more for this Covishield and less for this Covaxin. So when the vaccine supply is limited, it would be limited in the initial stage. The previous vaccine which we have seen, they took around 5 to 10 years for developing that vaccine manufacturing, then post-master market surveillance, and then it comes for the actual use. But since it's an emergency use authorization, the supply is limited. From phase 2 onwards, they usually take permission for stockpiling of the vaccine. And that vaccine wise, they are immediate. That's why you see an initial jump. Initially, you will be having a lot of vaccines which are available. Afterwards, after the stockpile, which has piled over the last 2-3 months after the phase 2 trials, that is consumed, then there's a dip. That's why it's a time. With the time, as the production increases, we can go with this. That's why looking at the supply issue, there is a need for prioritization of the beneficiaries. So that how we have prioritized the beneficiaries, that I want to share that. One of the first priority was to protect the health and the pandemic response system. We have to that's the first priority. Even across the globe, that was the first priority. And the second priority was to reduce deaths and complications due to COVID-19. This is our data which shows that around 24% of the deaths, 54% of the deaths are in people more than 61 years of age. That's why during the first prioritization, the 60 years was during the second phase of vaccination. That means 60 people with more than 60% of age were included. Then the second criteria was that people in the age group of 51 to 60, they contribute to 24% of the deaths due to COVID. So this was the criteria which was used for prioritizing the beneficiaries. So as has been mentioned by Anuvinda in the start, that means we started with the vaccination of the healthcare workers because we wanted to protect the health system and maintain the pandemic reforms. Then we started with the frontline workers on 2nd of February. Then with the people with the age group above 60 years and people less than 45 to 59 years with comorbid conditions. So because the second objective was to prevent deaths due to COVID and prevent complications and hospitalization. From 1st of April, we have, based on the availability, it has now been, now all the persons aged above 40 years and above have been included. The goal is to protect the healthcare and the pandemic resource system and to reduce the COVID mortality. This is the definitions, I think, in the book, the operational guidelines which is available. That is already there. Who are the healthcare workers? Who are the frontline workers? Who are the prioritized age group? Who are the prioritized age group 2? Person less than this associated comorbidity. That means by the end of by July, we are targeting to reach around 30 crore population or 35 crore population. Then you see the priority population across all the globes is more or less a similar. Either they have the, because if you look at the prioritization, that means 3% of the population is, most of the countries, they are just targeting that because they are the most vulnerable people and they are trying to see that how these people are protected. Now, as the cases are picking up, we are witnessing a second peak and a lot of variants and other things have been talked about. But nevertheless, whatever variants are there, they have been, both the vaccine, Covishield and the Covaxin, they have been found to be effective in neutralizing the antibodies developed by this. So they have been found effective in the, the assays which have been done in the laboratories against this COVID mutant variants, or that is UK variant and the Brazilian variant. Now we are having around more than 50,000 vaccination centers, both public and private, and around in the private sector, you are having around 6,000 to 8,000 centers, whereas maximum bulk of the vaccination is taken by the government sector. And the performance, that means each center on an average can do 100 vaccine, can give 100 vaccine doses. But if you look at that, we can reach around 50 lakh doses per day, but still we are reaching around 35, 36 lakhs, 33 lakhs, 25 lakhs, that kind of average is there. That means on an average, we are doing 25 million to 2.5 million doses per day, which is very much below this. That means there is some hesitancy is also playing into that. We are not fully utilizing the vaccinations which are available to us. As I mentioned that way back in the month of April, May, the things have started. And after it was announced during the from the ramparts of the Red Fort, that means we should be starting the vaccination. There was a national expert group of vaccination which was constituted with representation from the state governments. This network guides the government of India on all aspects of vaccination rollout, including prioritization of the population groups, inventory management, vaccine selection, vaccine delivery mechanism, tracking mechanism, and all the other decision makes is done in consultation with the state government duties to make COVID-19 vaccine initiative as a national effort. And we are trying to open in the spirit of federal cooperative federalism that the states are also equal partners in taking the decision for prioritization. At the state level, we are having a state steering committee chaired by Chief Secretary. Then we have a state task force. At the district level, we are having a district task force. This is further percolated down to the block level. In the block level, also you will be having a similar kind of setup. This is the CoWIN platform. I think the nitty-gritty here, my previous speaker has showed how the entries are done. CoWIN app is very simple to use app for recording vaccine data. It is having a temperature logger as well. It is having a CoWIN beneficiary platform. The previous version of this CoWIN platform was your vaccine intelligence network. WIN was there, which was already been used in the universal program, which has been upgraded to accommodate this adult vaccination also. So it is sending all the information in the cloud server, and this is the way the cloud CoWIN dashboard is seen. It is a web interface for real-time visibility of what is happening. So it is very difficult to impersonate. You might have come across people saying that people who are not eligible, they are also getting vaccination jabs, and that kind of things you might have witnessed. But all this information is collected on an electronic platform. It is very difficult. If in future, if somebody wants to prosecute that person for impersonation, that can be done. That kind of facility is there. We are aware that this kind of things are happening, but having said this, if we start reacting to all these things, then it will provide a block for the vaccine. Already vaccine hesitancy is now coming up because of reported news about the AstraZeneca. But still, we are just seeing that the person is taking the jab. We are aware about that, though he may not be eligible, but he's taking the jab. This is how the CoWIN app look at that. And this CoWIN app is connected in the Arogya Setu also for ease of registration. If you are having a Arogya Setu, in the Arogya Setu also you can do the registration and you can access your certificates and everything. So this is the modules which are available. That is administrator module, registration module, vaccination module, verification module. These are all the things which are available on this CoWIN platform. But this is all from my side. If there are any questions, I'm very happy to react to that. But I'm having time till only 4:25. After that, I have to rush for another meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Madan Gopal, for giving us all this information. I was just wondering, and Father Matthew, if it's all right, if we could ask the questions first, considering that Dr. Madan Gopal has to leave in a few minutes. Would you like the questions to be asked first, or should we continue?
Depends. I don't know whether the questions have already come. We were
I
planning
have a few
to.
questions already, Father, which had come in earlier.
Then go on.
Okay, so I will ask then some of the questions that have come in earlier, if I may just direct to the speakers first. This is for Dr. Prasad. Is COVID-19 vaccine safe for antenatal and the lactating mothers? This is Sister Veronica who's asked the question. Dr. Prasad, for you.
There's not enough data internationally, so the government has clearly given a guideline that pregnant and lactating women should not be vaccinated.
Okay, thank you. The next question is for Dr. Madan Gopal. In sight of safety and efficacy of COVID-19 vaccine, sorry, that's all I seem to have in that. Okay. The next question is, found cases of positive on testing after vaccination. What are the probabilities of this happening? Again, this is to Dr. Prasad.
Okay, first of all, as an institution, we are very grateful to the Government of India for rolling out this vaccine program, and it has given our healthcare workers a lot of confidence in getting vaccinated. There was initially some vaccine hesitancy, so I had to go around department by department convincing people to get vaccinated. Now about 90% of our staff are vaccinated and about 80% have got the second dose. So we have had some infections post vaccination, but the data all over the world is showing that almost 0% of patients who get infection after vaccination become very sick, need a hospitalization, or go to ICU or die. And that's the same thing we are seeing in our institution. People who are vaccinated who have an infection have very mild infection.
Thank you. Dr. Madan Gopal, this is for you. Disabled persons are more vulnerable to COVID-19. Why are they not in the priority group for vaccination, irrespective of age?
This question was, I think, this question was asked by the Honorable Court also. So there, since the prioritization was the health workers, the frontline workers, because they have been directly dealing with the patients and they are quite vulnerable to the infection. That was the whole criteria. That means first priority was to protect the system and protect the response of the system to the pandemic. The first priority was that. And as the things started becoming available, as they started the vaccine available, more and more age groups will be available. Across the globe, I think none of the countries they have included the disability. If they fall into this criteria of this comorbid and this age group of 45 plus, they can get this vaccination. So that right now they are not excluded. They have to just follow the COVID appropriate.
Okay. Thank you for that. So this question is for Dr. Prasad again. Is vaccine safe for HIV and TB patients?
Vaccine is safe for people with immunosuppression and it is recommended for them because they are at much higher risk of a poor outcome if they get COVID. However, the vaccine efficacy may be less than in an immunocompetent person. Nevertheless, they should be vaccinated.
Thank you. Dr. Madan Gopal, there is another question from Sister Dr. Anne Maria. She says, how can CHAI member institutions participate as vaccine centers? Is there any resource for awareness material? Are there any resources of awareness material? And can private hospitals provide vaccine free of cost to the underprivileged? There are 3 questions.
Regarding this, to be a vaccine center, you can always register as a vaccine center with a district immunization officer. You can contact the district immunization officer. They will see that whether you are having all the 3 specifications. That means a place for registering the beneficiary, place for inoculation, place for observation, as well as for dealing any adverse reaction. If you are having that, you qualify to become a vaccination center. That's one. you might be doing the other routine immunizations. You can always opt for being a COVID vaccination site. Since you are not a private sector, you can get vaccine free of cost from the government and inoculate that based on the availability of the vaccine and the priority. That call has to be taken at the district level. That has been left to us. Coming to the second question is about the private sector taking the vaccine and giving free of cost. Because private sector have been asked to pay 150 rupees upfront for procurement of vaccine from the government sector. That's a price which have been negotiated with the manufacturers. Otherwise, they're all cribbing about that why we have reduced this price, 150 rupees for one dose of vaccination. So they have to upfront deposit this money into the NHA account to get this vaccination doses. After that, if they want to give it free of cost to the eligible beneficiaries, that's up to them. Otherwise, right now, through the private sector, it's not possible to give free of cost this. All the free, if you look at the vaccination site, out of the 44,000 vaccination sites, around 38,000 vaccination sites are in the government sector, including the other sectors. And the other 4,000 to 6,000 centers are there in the private sector. The contribution is not that encouraging what we were anticipating. It's hardly 15 to 20% of vaccination which they are covering. Maximum vaccination is happening in the erstwhile routine vaccination sites in the government sites. And
so would you encourage our members to join the vaccination?
Yes, you can always join if you are having this facility. Nearest cold point, whatever nearest cold point is there, you say that we are not going to charge anything. You just provide all the material to us. So they will be doing that. So private sector, they have to deposit 150 rupees and 100 rupees they charge for service charge for providing the inoculation. That's it. Upfront they have to deposit. Any vaccination site can be opened. But since you want to provide it free of cost, then you have to have a tie-up with the district immunization officer or the nearest cold chain point, whichever is near to that hospital. And if the tie-up and the other things happens, then you can get vaccine from the government side and you can do the vaccination at your center.
Thank you, Doctor. That's invaluable information. Dr. Prasad, this is for you. Is it okay for corona positive to go to the for vaccination, or should he wait till the report is negative? Is it okay for the patient with a history of cancer to take the vaccine? So there are two questions here. This is Mr. Mateen has asked this question.
Patients with a history of cancer can definitely take the vaccine. I'll clarify with Dr. Madana Gopal. I believe that you can go for your vaccination 1 month after your positive test. And if you have had convalescent plasma, only after 3 months.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes, Dr. Madan Gopal.
Okay. If it's up to the vaccination site, the moment you go for vaccination, if you say that I have undergone the RT-PCR test and I am awaiting report, they will not inoculate that person because that's as per the discretion of the vaccinator, saying that if you are ill, if you are having symptoms like COVID, they will not vaccinate you. If they vaccinate, then we don't know what will happen to that person. Normally, they will not vaccinate a person if he has undergone a COVID test and he is waiting for the report. If the report comes negative, he can come back in the next session, and now the walk-in facility is there. After 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, you walk into any center and you get self-inoculated. That's a thing which is already there. So for COVID positive person, if you are awaiting report, the vaccination is not done. It is not recommended also, they will not do also. What was the second question?
The second one was for the cancer patients, which Dr. Prasad has answered.
These are all the comorbid conditions. They are highly vulnerable. If they are apparently well, they are having cancer, they can be inoculated. Yeah. We want to prevent death due to death in this patient. And if you look at the trajectory of the deaths, particularly with people with comorbid conditions or the immune compromised patients, the trajectory is more in these people. You have to protect them. That's why this is not a contraindication for not giving vaccination. They are to be encouraged if they are If they are fine, if they are normal, they can come and get the vaccination. That's the thing, and it's up to the discretion because the doctor is there. If we feel that he should not be vaccinated, they will take a call then and there. Otherwise, there is no contraindication.
Thank you. At the moment, we will compile there are some more questions coming in. We'll compile it. Hopefully, we'll be able to catch Dr. Madan Gopal before he leaves with the next set of questions. May we go on now to the next speaker? Our next speaker is not again a stranger to us. She's Sister Dr. Beena Madhavat, UMI. She belongs to the Congregation of Ursulines of Mary Immaculate. She completed her MBBS and MS degree in obstetrics from the prestigious St. John's Medical College, Bangalore. She has a diploma in minimal access surgery from the World Laparoscopic Surgery, Kiel University, Germany. She has completed a course in healthcare design and implementation from Melbourne University, Australia. Presently, she is the Deputy Director and Consultant Gynecologist at the Holy Family Hospital, Mumbai. Sister Dr. Beena is also the Provincial Councillor for the Medical Apostolate of Sacred Heart Province of UMI Sisters and is the National President of the Sister Doctor Forum of India. She's also the Health Secretary of the Mumbai Archdiocese. I now invite Sister Dr. Beena to share her experience of the vaccine rollout in the Holy Family Hospital, Mumbai. Over to you, Sister.
Thank you, Anivinda, for your warm welcome. At the outset, I would like to thank Father Matthew and Chai team for giving me this opportunity to share my experience. Like several of my doctor colleagues and non-medical friends, I too was very, very skeptical about the safety and efficacy of COVID-19 vaccine. This is because, as all of us know, COVID-19 is a very, very young disease, 1-year-old disease. And for a normal vaccine to be launched or produced, it takes 4 to 5 years on an average. So this was my fear. Even amongst us, the doctors and medical fraternity, there were heated arguments and debates and deep mistrust regarding the vaccine, its efficacy, and above all, its safety. So here I would like to bring and share with you an account of what was happening inside me and how I overcame my doubts and fears regarding the vaccine and how I got vaccinated. Next slide. On 11th December 2020, when the UK launched the vaccination program, few of my classmates, my colleagues got vaccinated, and they posted some photos of their experience and shared their experience in my class WhatsApp group. To my pleasant surprise, none of them had any side effect other than some minor fever and myalgia. This instilled in me a kind of confidence, but still I was bewildered and confused because the safety and efficacy was my main concern. And that was the time when AstraZeneca had halted their clinical trial because of some adverse effect. That was a temporary one. So at last, when India launched on 16th of January, the vaccination drive, few of our doctors, nurses, and sisters from my own community had gone to the government sector, the nearby government hospital, and received the vaccination. They came back happy without any side effect. Even then, I was not so much convinced. Later on, with my discussions and conversations, I decided that I will go for vaccination. Gradually, my fears disappeared and I shed my inhibition and went ahead for the vaccination. However, on the previous day of my vaccination, I had this fear of anaphylactic reaction, anaphylactic shock, and even death. So that haunted me. So I spoke to one of my community member, a sister nurse, and requested her to accompany me to the vaccination center with an extra set of medicine kit, which contained the Avil injection, adrenaline injection, and Efcolin. And to my surprise, when I reached the vaccination center, I was really, I could hear my heartbeat. I was having palpitation. But as I walked in, I did not have any waiting period. They gave me the injection and I did not have any side effect. After 30 minutes of observation, I was back again to my hospital. So that time, that was the moment I started propagating. I started asking others to go and receive the vaccine. But after 24 hours, I had mild fever, body ache, and weakness, which I could overcome by taking Dolo 650. That did not hinder my duty hours, or I could perform the surgeries, whatever I had posted, without any difficulties by just taking a Dolo 650. So in short, what I would like to share is how I shared my doubts and fear about COVID-19 vaccination. First of all, with my discussion and by listening to my own colleagues' experience, and also a kind of reassurance from my doctor friends, which actually rekindled calmness within me. The next slide. Now I would like to, sorry, the previous slide. I would briefly share how we started in Oli Family Hospital, Mumbai, our vaccination drive. First of all, when we decided that we will go for as a vaccination center, few of our doctors, nurses, and managers, middle managers, attended a training program organized by the MCTM and WHO. Thereafter, we prepared a standard operative procedure and we set up the vaccination center. As Dr. Prasad had already mentioned, we had this a waiting area, a designated registration counter, the inoculation booths, the observation area. We also had to set up a room to deal with anaphylactic shock and to attend to the like cord blue drills, and a separate entrance and exit for the vaccination persons. Once we set up that, we appointed a nodal officer, a site manager, and a vaccination coordinator. And we registered our center for COVID-19 vaccination. We procured a special ILR fridge to maintain the cold chain. But to our surprise, when Maharashtra got the vaccination license, many of the hospitals, major private hospitals' name was not there. That's because we were not affiliated for CGHS scheme or Pradhan Mantri Arogya Surakshit Yojana. But within 2 days, we got permission. The Commissioner of Mumbai intervened. We got permission. And after that, we went ahead with the vaccination drive on 4th of April. Since then, every day we are inoculating about 200 to 250 people. Touch wood, the vaccination program is successful. But as I was sitting here today, we got a bad news that tomorrow onwards, we may have to stop because there are no vaccination available, the vaccines available. So the state government has asked us, all the centers, to stop it temporarily. Last slide. Okay, so the take-home message, or how I would conclude, is in case of any vaccination, we have learned it from the past. A stitching time saves 9. This is true of smallpox or polio and many other major illnesses in the past. As I mentioned earlier, COVID-19 is a very young disease. We have the experience of only 1 year, and the scientific fraternity is trying to understand the nature of disease and how good a vaccine can be. Even when we are speculating, we always believe that something is better than nothing. So I would like to conclude by the saying of Pope Francis, that I quote, "I believe that morally everyone must take the vaccine. It is the moral choice because it is about your life, but also about the lives of others." And I think more and more after getting vaccinated, And after hearing and after reading all the literature, it may not prevent the disease, or it may not give us 100% protection, but at the same time, it will give us the convalescent period can be reduced, and it may prevent us from developing a very, very serious complication of COVID. So I recommend personally that everyone should take COVID-19 vaccine, as well as if there is a possibility, our center should go and start the vaccination drive. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Bina, as usual, for giving us your experience on taking the vaccine and also the administration of the same. We will now go on to our next speaker, who is going to share her experience with us. This is Sister Dr. Anne Maria Jisha, CMC. Sister Anne Maria is a member of the Congregation of Mother of Carmel, Bhopal Province, Madhya Pradesh. She holds an MBBS and MD in General Medicine. She's currently working as an assistant professor at LN Medical College and JK Hospital, Bhopal. She has a passion for being involved in academic life of her MBBS and MD students. Her other interests include home and hospital-based palliative care for the destitute. She runs a daily evening outpatient clinic for the general population and a weekly outreach village clinic for the rural population in and around Bhopal. Over to you, Sister Dr. Maria. Is Sister Maria there? Yeah. Can you unmute yourself, Sister? Can we then move on to Sister Dr. Monica D'Souza, and we'll come back to Sister Dr. Maria later on, Anne Maria. Sister Dr. Monica D'Souza works as the administrator and medical doctor in St. Francis Hospital, Indore, MP. She belongs to the Sister Servant of Holy Spirit SSPS congregation. The hospital was declared district COVID health center by the Madhya Pradesh government. In July 2020, Sister St. Francis Hospital Indore began as a COVID test center, and in September 2020, it was also asked to reserve 20% of its beds for COVID cases. So far, it has treated more than 450 cases. So over to you, Sister Monica. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone in the Chai Network, all the guests and all the listeners. I'm glad to share about my experience of holding the vaccination drive in our center. So the healthcare workers were vaccinated on 27th of January. And it was not something that we looked forward, because at that time the COVID infection was quite low and maybe to the minimum. So we were not really serious about it, and we thought COVID is gone, so do we need to take a vaccination? Such was our mindset at that time. So anyway, the government provided, so we all the staff, doctors, everyone took the vaccination happily. Then on the day of vaccination, the symptoms followed. Most of us, say 90% of our staff doctors had some sort of symptoms, such as malaise, low-grade fever, and also some of our staff had 103-degree temperature, and some even were on leave for 2-3 days. So, but then the more the symptoms, better the the antibodies are produced. That's what it was told, and okay, we let go about it. And the second dose of vaccination also happened, And suddenly we were on 1st March 2021, we were also empaneled as Ayushman Hospital. So, and this also gave impetus to the hospital that we should take up this vaccination drive for the public. And it was such a short notice period that around 11 o'clock, somebody from the government office called up and told, your hospital is chosen for the vaccination for the public. So be ready. And the next day morning, we have put things ready, and it was a really Herculean task for our staff as well as management. And because we had experience of having the healthcare workers vaccinated at our center, we knew the guidelines, protocols, and all the spaces, whatever is necessary. So it was easy for us. Only the crowd management was quite difficult for us initially. That was too many people, those above 65, 45 plus with morbidity, and huge crowd management, and with this COVID protocol, especially mask was with everyone, it was okay, but to maintain distance, it was a really big task. So we had to curtail the number up to 100 only. Then we sent away some people, and all these initial difficulties were a little difficult to manage. But after some time, after a week, the things were quite streamlined. So in this, the arrangement is that the first there is a registration counter, and the patients or the beneficiaries are asked for the in their mobile application to do the self registration and come. And many a times the this app didn't work well, and that's why the waiting period was quite long for the beneficiaries. Then followed by the verification of the Aadhaar card and all those things, and followed by the vaccination, then the AEFI, that is the after effect of immunization. So luckily we did not have any AEFI cases, but all things were ready. And since then we have been giving the vaccinations. We also had the vaccination camps conducted outside of the hospital. It is known as in Indore, it is known as COVID Mahotsav. So every hospital was encouraged or pressurized to conduct the vaccination camps in the colonies or in the suburban places, so that more and more people can be benefited. There were also, it was so joyful to give the vaccination to those above 90, 100-year-old, and then some of the challenges were that even after the 2 doses of vaccination given, a few of our staff were tested COVID positive. So we had no explanation about it. Of course, we were all wondering whether to how to go about it. And the second wave of COVID came into place, and with that, our hospital we had reserved only 20% of the beds, and today we have 60 patients. And just now we had such an emergency that our oxygen flow was totally cut off because no supply, and we are all in a real struggling period at this moment. Yeah. Then there is also another challenge was that Covishield or Covaxin, we were provided by the government to take both, have both, whatever let the patients choose. In the later period, initially only Covishield was given. So we opted only for Covishield. We said both the vaccines we will not keep, because one thing is that to keep a record of all things is difficult. And so we went with the only Covishield. We refused for the Covaxin. Then there are also requests for the vaccination from the citizens below the permissible age. Many beneficiaries are, especially the teachers, bank workers, and all, coming in line, queuing up for the vaccination. And it's also hard to tell them that it's not possible. This is all our short experience, I could say. Thank you for the opportunity given by CHAI.
Sorry, can you hear me? Thank you, Dr. Monica, for your explanation and your experience. Dr. Madan Gopal is having to leave. If anyone has any questions, please do ask or put it on the screen. In the meantime, I would like to just ask, I think Dr. Monica put it in her slide. Is there going to be any expansion, Dr. Madan Gopal, of the eligible for the vaccine in the near future? You need to unmute yourself, Doctor.
Yes, thank you, Arvinda. As I have mentioned that we have to prioritize based on the supplies, we have to prioritize the beneficiaries. The supply is not that across the globe they are facing with supply issues, supply of vaccine. The manufacturing capacities also are being ramped up. It will take time. Till that time, at least we have to see that whatever prioritization has happened, we have reduced it to 45 years and plus people with comorbid conditions. That's also there. Till such time, the vaccine supply is more or less stabilized and streamlined, and we have ample amount of vaccine apart from meeting the export requirements and other domestic requirements. And then it will be expanded. It's not that that is not there. That's a second priority, third priority. That kind of prioritization will happen.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anybody else who wants to ask Dr. Madan Gopal a question as he has to leave? I think Dr. Madan, these are the questions that we've had for you. Thank you so much.
Okay. If there are any other questions, Anuvinda, you can share with me and so that I can respond back to them.
Okay. Thank you so much.
It's very nice interacting with you all people. Thank you for accommodating my time and other things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor.
We will together, we will find and see that how we help the people and how we can work in the pandemic and see that the pandemic is over. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Prasad, do you want to say, Dr. Prasad, do you want to say something? Okay, maybe go on to our next speaker, who's going to share her experiences. I think Dr. Jisha, Anne Maria Jisha can come on now. I have already introduced her, but I will introduce her again. Dr. Anne Marie Jisha is CMC is a member of the Congregation of Mother of Carmel, Bhopal Province, Madhya Pradesh. He holds an MBBS and an MD in General Medicine. She is currently working as the assistant professor at AN Medical University. So, Dr. Maria, can you please come on? Thank you. Is Sister Dr. Anne Maria Jisha on?
I don't think she's online.
Again? Okay, I was just given a message saying that she should be on next. Okay, so then we'll move on to Dr. Veronica, Sister Dr. Veronica JMJ. Sister Dr. Veronica JMJ is the administrator of the JMJ Morning Star Hospital, Raigada, Chhattisgarh. JMJ Morning Star Hospital is a 150-bedded multi-speciality hospital serving the sick and needy in the tribal belt areas of Raigad in the state of Chhattisgarh. In May 2020, the hospital was declared as a quarantine center, and in September 2020, it was declared as a COVID hospital. Since then, it has provided care to the COVID positive patients of the area. So we ask now Dr. Veronica to say a few words and share her experience with us. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening to Father Matthew and the entire team of CHAI for giving me this chance to share my experience on preparedness for rollout and management of COVID-19 vaccine center. So on 1st March, as the government has asked us to set up the vaccination center, we were given vaccine by the government as per the due rates. Storing of vaccine and distribution is done by the government, and we receive the next slide, please. Storing of vaccine and distribution is done by CG government, and we receive 10 vials of the vaccine every day. We together with the government observed that vaccine is manufactured and carried in a vaccine carry bag under the proper temperature during the transit and administration. The same is stored in the ILR in the hospital. As per the government order, the health professionals were trained from our hospital, like doctors, nurses, and IT personnel, like for process of registration, verification, and vaccination. And many of our staffs were trained even to counsel the patient regarding the post-vaccination complications, efficacy of vaccination, clients with pre-existing diseases like cardiac and brain disorders. We created a team of 6 members for the vaccination. Our team really works hard to counsel the clients who are afraid of many kinds of apprehensions. People do wrong ideas about getting the same diseases even after the post-vaccination. And I think it is good that we can have more and more awareness programs to the common people. Only then we can fight against this great pandemic. Some of the challenges that we have faced, like patients asking for vaccines who are not eligible, like the age group of 45 to 59 without a comorbidity, and below 45 years are requesting the vaccine. Also, another challenge, we had also shortage of vaccines for some time. We stopped actually almost 1.5 weeks. We stopped the vaccination because there was no vaccine. And then another thing, like many of them are late. They're asking for Covaxin vaccine, so which we don't have. We are provided by the government only Covishield. So thank you.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Thank you, Sister Dr. Veronica, for your experiences and for sharing them with us. I now call upon Sister Dr. Anne Maria Jisha to share her experiences. I hope she's online.
Yeah, can you hear me? Good afternoon to all.
Good afternoon, sister. We can hear you.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am, and sorry for the technical error.
No problem.
And I'm happy that I am here in this platform to share my experience with the COVID-19 vaccination. We have started our COVID vaccination for the frontline workers, that is for the doctors and nurses of our hospital, from January 25th, and we all had our second dose by February 25th. And for the public, we have started the vaccination from 2nd March 2021. And for the past 1 month, we had vaccinated approximately 26,800 people, out of which majority of them were of the people of the above 60 years and 40% were above 45 years comorbidities. Actually, it was surprising to see that from day one, the vaccination site the rush was seen by the people of 60 plus age. And the positive aspect of this vaccination that I could see was there was absolutely nil emergencies that we could observe post-vaccination in our hospital that required medical attention. And initially, people were fearful about the vaccine. And later, as the days gone by, this apprehension had been gone, and there was a declining trend of apprehension about the vaccination. And people are actually motivated enough to come for vaccination in spite of this increased incidence of COVID of current scenario. But this is seen in the urban and suburban area where our hospital is situated. And we have trained our ASHA workers to go to different villages for the vaccine campaign. And also we ourselves have conducted different vaccine campaigns in villages where people in rural setup are more hesitant than the suburban and the urban areas to come for vaccination. And the hurdles that we see is the extreme projection of the rare side effects that we see, and that is being projected in the social media. And social media gives a lot of unwanted and unnecessary things to scare the population. And the next thing, the common question is asked by the people are the question about the effectiveness of this current vaccine to the multivariant current second wave. The people do ask, what is the effect of this vaccine that we take? How effective it is to the current second wave? In fact, we have in our hospital approximately 595 patients of COVID section. And in that, we have seen recently nearing half of the people who are admitted in our hospital are received either partially immunized or fully vaccinated. So we are actually conducting the study on the disease severity between the vaccinated versus unvaccinated, etc. So in conclusion, I would like to say, despite of all these uncertainties, the COVID vaccination should be continued and be promoted because the concept of cross immunity can be a ray of hope. Like different variants, the vaccine that we receive can have a kind of cross immunity between the different variants and can save us from this COVID infection. Thank you.
Thank you, sister, for sharing your experiences and for also your little YouTube videos that I have been watching. Thank you very much. If you have not seen them, these videos that sister puts out have got a lot of information on them. They're very short videos, so you should watch them. We have now time for a few questions, last few questions. There is one question over here from Selma Nalur. Have we to wait for 42 days for the second dose? Dr. Prasad, could you answer that, please?
As I told you, the Indian government is recommending 4 to 8 week interval, while WHO is recommending an 8 to 12 week interval. WHO data is based on the fact that, as I said before, the first dose seems to provide 70% immunity for 3 months. So it's not worth taking the second dose after 4 weeks. So 6 to 8 weeks would be reasonable, I would think, in the Indian context, because the government wants us to take it by 8 weeks.
Okay, thank you. Then there is a question here. Has COVID vaccine been started for all age groups from 1st April? From which age group it can be given now? This is from Sister Lomina. Dr. Prasad?
Right now, from 1st April, only 45 years and above is allowed. In fact, even healthcare workers less than 45 years of age can now only take it in a government hospital with an employment certificate.
So you don't need to have comorbidities. You just have to be above the age of 45.
45 years or above can go and get vaccinated.
Okay. Are there any more questions?
The vaccine is prepared according to previous symptoms, but now the symptoms are different. How far the efficacy? I think the question is about variants. Probably.
Yeah.
So as Dr. Madana Gopal said, We don't know. I showed you some data on the variant prevalence in India. So the UK variant is the most common, and both the vaccines, I mean, Covishield definitely has good efficacy against the UK variant. Covaxin has still not published the paper, so we don't know.
Okay.
But it's reasonable to expect that will be efficacious. See, the thing is, the fact of the matter is, for influenza, every year the vaccine is changed. So for the northern hemisphere, like India, every March to April, the WHO comes out with the list of strains to be covered, and by September to October, the vaccine manufacturers release the strains. So most probably, in the future, COVID will also become like that. The strains will, vaccines will be updated to cover the strains that are circulating. And the influenza vaccine covers either 3 or 4 strains. So there could be multiple strains covered. That's what we'd expect to happen.
Okay, Anuvinda, can I come in?
Yes, please, Farah.
Yeah, one question. Dr. Prasad said it looks like this wave, the symptoms are mild and it is directly getting into the lung, affecting the lung. And is it something which you observe there? Because
there's a fake WhatsApp going around which is attributed to CMC Vellore.
Yeah.
It's not from CMC Vellore at all, and it's inaccurate what's there. No, I think that's Dr. Matthew Abraham. No, actually, it's as bad as the previous wave, I would say. Our ICU has been constantly full for the last 2 weeks. Our level 2 ward is under severe pressure. So people are still becoming sick.
But do you see a difference in the symptom, in the sense, in the severity? Like earlier, people had severe fever, those kind of symptoms, and then it affected the lungs. Do you think that now it is the symptoms, initial symptoms are mild and then get straight into the lungs and causing more severity or serious issues?
We actually have to analyze the data before we can answer that question. Actually, I'm not a clinician anymore. I'm mainly sitting in medical superintendent's office. So I can't answer that question. But most patients are starting with fever, the usual symptoms, fever, cough and body ache. It's still an influenza-like illness.
So there's another question here, Dr. Prasad. Is it true that diclofenac can have severe effect on health if taken after the vaccination?
The thing is, diclofenac is not recommended. Paracetamol is recommended. Diclofenac is a drug that's well known to cause anaphylaxis, especially intravenous diclofenac. And there was a case reported in the news recently of a doctor husband giving his wife diclofenac, and she died after that. And her parents have sued him also. So diclofenac, we wouldn't use that. I mean, oral diclofenac should be relatively safe, but intravenous diclofenac or intramuscular, there is a small risk of anaphylaxis.
One of the questions that's coming up is Covishield or Covaxin? Which one should we encourage the people to take?
My answer would be take whatever is available, because in general, most of the time you don't have a choice. In our institution, for example, for the first till about March 31st, we had only Covishield available. We were quite happy about that because it's got a lot of scientific publications and data available. So my guess is 85% of our staff have got Covishield. From April 2nd or 3rd, or from towards the end of March, only Covaxin has been available as the first dose. So if you want to take one or the other, you'll have to probably find a center which has that. There are a few of our eminent doctors, scientists who feel that Covaxin is better because it's a whole virus inactivated vaccine and is likely to produce antibody against multiple spike proteins. So one of our scientists actually went to Madras Medical College and where you could get either one and chose to take Covaxin.
So there is another question here. Those affected by COVID and cured, do they have chances of getting cardiac arrest?
No, there's no chance of cardiac arrest because of vaccination. I'd just like to clarify that question from earlier. When can you take your vaccine after a COVID infection?
Yeah.
Generally, you would have at least 3 to 6 months of immunity following a natural COVID infection. In fact, the immunity produced by natural COVID infection seems to be incredibly good, because about 130 million infections worldwide, and the reinfections reported are only in triple digits, published reinfections. So it's reasonable to take it after 3 months, I would say, just to allow someone else to get the vaccine.
Thank you. I think we've answered most of the questions. So maybe we will now close the session. Sister Veronica, who's the president of CHAI, has sent in her apologies. She had to go away for another meeting, and so has left me with the responsibility to give the vote of thanks. I would like to thank all of the speakers today who have spent their valuable time with us at CHAI today. Dr. Prasad Mathew, thank you very much for answering all our questions and for giving invaluable information to us. Dr. Madan Gopal for his insights as how the government is working and thinking on the vaccine rollout, and how they have got expert groups that are coming together to think about the whole dissemination of information as well as for the vaccines. I would also like to thank very much Sister Dr. Beena Mandavat, Sister Dr. Anne Maria Jisha, Sister Dr. Monica D'Souza, and Sister Dr. Veronica JMJ for their invaluable sharing of experiences with us on the taking of the vaccination as well as the giving of the vaccination in their health centers. Thank you once again to all of you who have attended this webinar today. I would also like to thank CHAI very much for having this very important webinar on World Health Day. And we ask God to bless each and every one of you as you continue to step forward to work with compassion with the people of this country. Thank you once again. And Father Mathew and your team for thinking up this wonderful seminar and this webinar. Thank you very much. For Newton, Isaac Newton for coordinating, Manish for all the work he's done on the IT work and his team. Thank you very much for attending this meeting, one and all. God bless each one of you.